Hello, church family. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kenny. It's nice to see you all. To get started, I'm going to tell a joke. So, do you guys know what the smartest insect there is? A spelling bee. No? I used to tell a lot of really bad jokes when I was younger. I guess I need to get started by talking from the beginning on what it was like for me and how I got here today. I was born into an Irish-German family where family was really important. We stayed together a lot. We were really close. But there was one thing that pervaded a lot of it, and that was really good food and drinking. We did a lot of drinking in my family. I had no idea that when I took that first drink of alcohol when I was 9 from my dad that, at the age of, I think it was 46, that I'd be laying in a pool of my own vomit, choking on it, and in my own body fluids. I had no idea that was going to happen. I had no idea where that decision would take me. So to start out, I had a really great mom and I had a really good dad. They're hard mill workers. But the drinking kept getting more and more prevalent as my dad's addiction went farther and farther along. And the fighting became really prevalent. There was a lot of fighting and a lot of name calling. When I was a boy, there was an old saying that, men don't just happen, men are made. Men are built. This is the way you're going to act. This is the way you're going to talk. And I found out later that's not necessarily so. But so I was incorporated into this drinking culture, and particularly into violence too. My family was really big on handling things a certain way, and violence was one of those things. At an early age, I was having trouble at a bus stop with a kid that was a little bigger than me. And for all you guys who didn't grow up in Irish families, there's a certain talk that sometimes dads have with their children about how those situations are handled. And it's in a real direct, real violent way. And it's dealt with severely. And so no one will ever mess with you again or cause you any more grief. And so I was indoctrinated into that at a very early age, and I had some success at that, actually. I actually started to fight in tournaments and things like that, and I became very good. I'm not really good at it. I wasn't that good. I stopped a lot of them with my face. I didn't get this face by walking away. I opened my mouth, and this is the one that happened. But I started doing that, and I really liked it. And I liked the way it made me feel, and I liked feeling a little bit superior to other people. And it started to pervade into my life in other ways. I started drinking the fighting thing kept going on, and I was getting good grades in school, but I was edgy. I wasn't very much fun to be around. And I remember as time went on, I started getting into more fights. And I remember being angry at home. I remember watching my mom and dad fight, and I remember watching the exchanges and how just brutal they were. You're this and you're that, and the horrific name calling. But what happened to me was that I actually paid attention, and I started doing some of the same things. So I started drinking pretty heavy about my freshman year in high school. And I remember going to, back then they called them kegs, and I remember going and I remember drinking, and I remember it hitting the back of my throat. And I go, this isn't so bad. And there was a big bonfire, and there are girls, and there's music, and wow, this is something. And then I had more, and more, and more, and more, and more. And I go, this isn't so bad. I can see why the adults like to do this. And all this time, I'm really enjoying another thing in my life, and that was baseball. I never really had a girlfriend when I was younger. I think it was baseball. My first love really was baseball. I loved to play baseball. I just ate, slept, woke up. I'd sleep with my baseball hat sometimes. When I was a little kid, I would sleep with my baseball hat on. I just couldn't wait to play. I always knew where my mitt was. I always knew where my bat was. I always know that we had at least 3 or 4 balls all the time so we could get a game going. And I remember absolutely loving that. But as I started drinking more, and it wasn't like I was bad at baseball. I was pretty good at baseball. I played at the all-star level, tournament of champions. I mean, at that time, that was some of the higher stuff you could play, and I just really loved it. I just loved it. To this day, I go to a baseball park or something like that, and I just get excited. I'm thinking about it right now, and my hands are just getting all, just love to play baseball. And I pitched, and I was a utility infielder. I could play any position in the infield and pitch. I wasn't a very good catcher. I bounced a lot of those off my face, too, those foul balls and stuff. I wasn't very good at that. But as I kept drinking, I started getting less interested in baseball. Drinking was starting to absorb me, is the best way I can describe it. It became more of like drinking and baseball. And then pretty soon my life started to become more drinking and homework. And then it was drinking and my part-time job. And everything seemed to kind of start to center around that. And it was, it's hard to live like that when you're underage, trying to procure that kind of alcohol. But I was a clever lad, and I managed to figure that out and had friends that were older. As time went on, it took up more and more of my time, and I quit playing baseball because I wanted to do this, and I wanted to chase girls, and I wanted to run around, go to movies, ride around in fast cars, do that kind of stuff. Just loved it. Just loved it. So at the age of 18, my dad got this great job, and it was a job. My uncle was a diesel mechanic. And up in Alaska, there is still, at that time, severely remote places to live in. And my dad came home with this job opportunity and talked to the family, and it really wasn't much of a talk. Dad said, hey, guess what, we're moving to Alaska. But I'm going to say, it was a discussion. That was about it, but it made it sound like it was like a big family meeting. And so I gave up my senior year of high school, and I was in the pitching rotation back then too, so I was really kind of bummed because I was coming into my own a little bit. I was really starting to enjoy myself playing baseball again a little bit. But we packed up, and I gave up my senior year playing ball in high school, and we went up and we lived in a small Native American village up on the Arctic Circle. Now, the only place to get in there was by dog sled or airplane. You'd come by boat in the summer. And it was a really unique experience. I remember getting off the plane because, I was surprised. So these aren't like real planes. They're like, all these planes have to be equipped with what they call a STOL kit, short takeoff and landing. So these planes have to come down and hit this gravel driveway that was the airstrip. It was a gravel driveway. And so they come in and they hit, and then they have to like stop right away. And so we land in this small little village. And when I say small, the most people I ever saw there was 20. So, and that was at a funeral. It was serious. And so we land, and we're getting out of the plane, my brother and I, and there's no one that looks like me. I am, as I said earlier, I'm Irish and German. I pretty much glow in the dark, right? I'm about as white as they get. And these were Native American people. There was one other Caucasian man there, and he was it, and his brother. And I remember in that moment thinking, I'm a minority. And I'm going to need to watch what I say. I'm going to need to watch how I act. I don't want to step on any toes because the only way, I don't think there's another airplane after this one leaves. And so we get off the plane, and we're packing our stuff into the village, and two of the young men grabbed my brother and I, and this was interesting. They said, "Hey, you want to wrestle?" And I'm like going, I don't know what to do, do I thrash him? Do I let him win? What do I do, And so my brother at the time had taken second in the national tournament. And I was an alternate at the regional. And so we knew what we were kind of doing a little bit. And so we decided to wrestle, and we did good. And they left us alone. No problems. Unfortunately, that's about all it went. My brother and I were half the high school. He was a freshman, I was a senior. And my dad's drinking kept continuing. But he would go out on these different villages, and he would go and wire up diesel generators for the neighboring villages. He would come in and everything would be fine, but then their drinking would start and everything would just go crazy. And when I say crazy, I meant like bad, like really bad arguments. And then the time comes and I graduate and I move out to Fairbanks, Alaska. And I'm sitting in Fairbanks, Alaska, and I move in with my aunt, and I get a job at my cousin's restaurant. And so I'm kind of doing my own thing. I'm 18 years old, and I get a phone call from my cousin, Matt. I says, Matt calls me and says, Kenny, you need to call Uncle Ernie. Uncle Ernie lived in Fairbanks, too. I said, okay, I will. And he says, you need to do it right now. So I get a phone call. And he says, this is tough for me. Give me a second. Okay, so I get the phone, I call Uncle Ernie up, and he says, hey. I go, yeah? And he says, hey, there's been a shooting in the village. I go, what do you mean? He says, yeah, your mom's been shot. And I go, really? And I'm thinking to myself, like, Mom was probably cleaning a 22 or something, shot herself in the foot. It's nothing big deal. No big deal. And I say, everything's okay. We're gonna get a medevac in from Fairbanks, and we're gonna try to fly her out of the village and get her into Fairbanks Memorial. I said, okay, no big deal. And I hang up the phone, and Matt knows more than what's going on. They hand me the phone. He says, Kenny, I need you to stick around at the restaurant for a little bit. Just stick around after shift, okay? And I said, okay. And Matt gets another phone call from my uncle, and Matt's talking to my uncle. He says, hey, you need to go up to Uncle Ernie's house right now. You need to go. Just take the rest of your shift off. Just go. I said, okay, what's going on? He says, no, you need to go up there. You need to get this checked out. So what's going on? He says, well, I don't really know the whole story. And so I hop in. I have this little Honda Civic with studded tires, and I race up to my uncle's house. And he says, I get in the door, and Uncle Ernie grabs me and says, hey, listen, this shooting's kind of a deal. It's kind of a deal. It's kind of serious. I go, what do you mean? He says, well, she's been really shot. I go, not in the foot or anything? No, she's been shot. And I'm like going, oh, man. Just for a moment, I want you guys to understand. So I think there's things in everybody's lives that are like landmarks, that are things that you just don't forget, that shake you to the very being of yourself. You know what I mean? Like just this grief and ache. And I remember a phone call comes from my Uncle Ernie's house. My Uncle Ernie says, okay, all right, I'll tell him. And he hangs up the phone, and he walks up to me, and he just grabs me in his arms, and he squeezes me, and he says, your mom didn't make it. And he just holds me there, and he won't let me go, and I'm trying to get away, and I'm 18 years old, I don't know what's going on, and I'm fighting, and I'm thrashing, and I'm suffering, all these things are going on in my head. She never got to see me make it. She never got to see my apartment. She never got to see any of that. I might have been worth all the trouble. You never, but I'm like, and I'm just devastated. So Well, my drinking career was fairly serious at that time, but the village kind of really toned it down. I started to drink after this. And I don't mean drink. I mean like drink. Like it is drinking and everything else. People no longer really have a place in my life. People exist to serve me or to get something from. I don't really know. There's a darkness that came inside me that I can tell you stuck with me for a long time. I was not pleasant. I was not pleasant. I managed to get married 2 different times. And I drank those marriages away, basically. And the fact that I couldn't deal with this pain and suffering that I had inside going on in me. When people were in relationships with me, they got hurt. And I don't mean that. And I want to be very clear on this. I am not going to minimize this in any way. When people were with me, they got hurt. I'm talking they would go into therapy. They would get stitches. They would get contusions. I'm not a nice guy, okay? And I don't really care about you. And I just don't. And I can't. I'm having such a hard time with anybody else's stuff because I'm in such pain. You know, I can't even get it to resonate. And it's tough. And it's tough now. And I'm drinking because I can't stand myself. I would, to give you an idea of how bad the self-loathing was, I would like go by mirrors like this because I couldn't look at myself because I actually knew that I was becoming this thing that I couldn't stand. And it's a dark place. It's just a really horrible, dark place. On my last big bender, I nearly died. They were throwing water on me and I stopped breathing. I was laying in my own fluids. My life was creeping out of me. This is where alcohol had taken me to this point. I am trying so desperately not to be this guy, but it's the best I can do is just be terrible and toxic. It's just the best I can do. At the end of this last drunk, I realized that I have to get help or I'm going to die. And really, guys, I had placed myself beyond human aid. See, I'd already tried churches, and I had tried people and counselors and hydroponics. I don't know, just name it. I was trying to quit. I couldn't quit. And I couldn't stop hurting people. I just couldn't stop hurting people. And I got into a program, and a 12-step program, and I'd start getting days. You know, I remember like landmarks trying to get 3 days, 4 days sober in a row, and then months and years. And I learned in this program how to live again. I mean, how to live. I just couldn't live without alcohol. It was always alcohol and it was always, I couldn't wait for the week, and it's almost 5 o'clock and I can drink. And it's just, and at this time you need to understand that I wasn't just drinking either. I was doing other things that were not really good for you. Bad people. I was running around with bad people that were as bad as I was. Because misery loves company. But I'm getting into this program and I'm starting to learn how to live again and live without alcohol. And so I start this process, this really kindergarten process of trying to find God in a way that I could understand him, in a way that I could relate to him. Because the one that I had wasn't working. It just wasn't working. I just didn't have it. I couldn't relate to him. I couldn't believe he could be concerned, you know. But I started this program and I started to learn how to live again. And I started saying, well, maybe I can trust God enough to do this for me and help me. And I surrounded myself with people and I started to make amends. And I started coming back to life. And I started caring about people and their concerns. Not a lot. I still can't sit through sad movies very well or anything like that, but I've come a long ways. And I learned something really important in that program, and that your past becomes your greatest asset. Well, I don't like talking about it, and I don't like going there because it makes my heart heavy. I also know that I don't want to go back. I just don't want to go back. I don't want to go to that place. So I start falling back in love with Jesus after I get some clean time, and I make some decisions for Christ. And you probably, those of you that are here for a while, they start seeing me creeping in the back row, and I'm just listening, and I'm falling back in love with God, and I'm starting to hear God differently for the first time in my life. And I decided to make a decision for Christ, and I had been baptized before, but at that time in my life, me being baptized was more like me going in as a dry devil and coming up a wet devil. It really wasn't. I was there because, somebody wouldn't marry me, or I was there because I was interested in something else, anything that would suit me, because it was all about me. Let me just tell you something. I was selfish, self-centered, dishonest, inconsiderate, and I was full of fear in that time. And that's what motivated everything that I thought ran through that. But I started falling in love with Jesus again. And I'm not saying that I had a Woomba. That came later, but or an epiphany, I guess that's a technical word. But I'm making this decision for Christ. I want to be part of the church. I want to do this. And I'm thinking I made amends. I'm thinking I made restitution because I've gone back in my past and I've tried to do that. About a week before my profession of faith, I'm up here, and Violet and her husband are up here and stuff like that, and when we got baptized. But a week before that, I'm sitting there, and guys, I don't know if you guys have ever had this experience or not, but this was scary for me. I'm sitting, and the weight of everything that I had done started to come down on me. All the lies, all the cheating, all the anger, all the hate, every punch I've thrown, everybody I've hurt, started to come and just start pressing on my shoulders. And all of a sudden, it's heavy. It's heavy. I start hearing the words of I think my second wife, and I remember that one in particular. I remember her crying into the phone saying, just have 2 beers. And I go, I can't do that. I can't do that. And it's just starting to push on me. And I can't compartmentalize anymore. I know it's us guys, we can kind of, we'll shove that over here, we'll shove this over here. I can't shove anything anywhere. I am this. This is who I am, or this is what's going on. And it's just crushing me. I promise you, it was like the life was being crushed out of me. It was just that shame and that guilt. And it was, there's no denying it. It was me. It was me. I can't go, I wouldn't have done it if she hadn't said this, or I wouldn't have done this if that idiot hadn't cut me off on the road, or whatever. It was me. This is what happened. And I don't think I'm going to make it. I don't think I can live like this. I don't think I'm going to make it out of this whole moment. Okay. Darkest before the dawn, right? Right? A voice. And I'm not saying it was super audible. I'm not saying anything like that. And it was like I was laying down, and he was like this. And he says, I'll take it. I'll take it. And it wasn't like, it was personable. It wasn't, it was like, yeah, I got that. I can take that. You want me to take that? Do you want it? I can take it all. I can take it all right now if you want. And I am feeling so much shame. I can't even pick my head up. I can't even pick my head up because this is who I am. I am everything that people get locked up for and people throw stuff at in medieval times. I am that thing. I'm not even really human. I'm kind of that thing. And I just like, it's like I can just squeeze out, please, please, you know. And it wasn't instantaneous. It wasn't boom, but it was like, it was kind of instantaneous. I guess it's like, you guys ever deadlift? It's like somebody took something like this and just pulled it off me and just like set it down. And I was able to stand. And I took this like deep breath. And it was like, wow. And it was free. Free. And what do I do now? I am free. And I stayed for a while being free. And in that moment, I surrendered. All of it. No more. No more crawling's over. I wasn't that guy anymore. Our Lord had taken it and pulled it and taken it from me. I couldn't take it. I remember that voice saying, you can't do anything with this anyway. All you can do is lay here and die. You can lay here and be crushed under the weight of this, of that shame and that guilt, and die, or you can choose to live. And I chose to live. We're going to put up a video clip here in just a little bit. I want to introduce the characters to you. It's from a scene in a series called Chosen. It's based on the pool of Bethesda, for those who read the Bible. The characters are going to be a crippled man that's lost his ability to walk. He has these arms and stuff. And there's going to be our Lord. And then at the end of it, there's going to be Peter. To give you an idea about the crippled man, just real quick, this man has been there his whole life, pretty much. He can't get to this pool. The pool's water will stir. And when it stirs, the legend has it that if you get into the water and you're the first one, you will be healed. Well, this gentleman can't get there. And on top of that, he's had some other bad news. And so if you can put yourself in the place of being crippled there the whole time and never really getting to the water, watching it stir, but never getting there. And then, obviously, pay attention to our Lord, but pay special attention to what the words of Peter are at the end of it. So if you guys can go ahead and get that clip going, we'll get that.
Shalom.
Me?
Yes.
Shalom.
I have a question for you.
For me. I don't have many answers, but I'm listening.
Do you want to be healed?
Who are you?
We'll get to that later. But my question remains.
Will you take me to the water? Look, I'm having a really bad day.
You've been having a bad day for a long time. So?
Sir, I have no one to help me into the water when it's stirred up. And when I do get close, the others step down in front of me. And so...
Look at me. Look at me. That's not what I asked. I'm not asking you about who's helping you, or who's not helping, or who's getting in your way. I'm asking about you.
I've tried.
For a long time, I know. And you don't want false hope again, I understand. But this pool, it has nothing for you. It means nothing. And you know it. But you're still here. Why?
I don't know.
You don't need this pool. You only need me. So, do you want to be healed? So let's go. Get up, pick up your mat, and walk.
I'm free to walk, like he said. Don't forget your bed.
Why does this matter?
Because you're not coming back here. That life is over. Everything changes now.
King is alive. King is alive. You won't be needing that because you're not coming back here anymore. When that weight was lifted off me, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to respond. I was lucky enough to become part of a really great church, the one I belong to today, the one I'm speaking in today. You know what my life's like now, really quick? My life is Jesus and. It's Jesus and work. It's Jesus and my marriage. It's Jesus and my church. It's Jesus and my friends. It's Jesus and my kids. Listen, it's not going to get easy. It hasn't been easy since I got here. I mean, but here's the trick. See, it's not supposed to go our way. It's supposed to go his way. Sometimes that's working really good. Sometimes, he wants to do a left or he wants to do a right. I wish I had more time. I wanted to share one more quick little story with you. There's a story about a king. He had a prime minister, and the prime minister went wherever the king went. One day the king was sharpening his sword, and he dropped his sword and it hit his toe. Cut off his middle toe. King's blood's going all over, and the king's trying to do his toe, and the prime minister goes, "Hey, it'll be okay. This will work for good. Everything's going to be okay." And how can this be okay? Are you crazy? Get out of my sight. And throws him in jail. King's going on a hunting expedition like a month later, and he's in this big hunting expedition, and he's going, and they're chasing the deer, and it runs away from him, and he gets separated from the party. His hunting party. He's all by himself on his horse, and this king owns so much land that he doesn't even know he has other indigenous people on there. And so he gets in the forest, and these indigenous people, they grab him, and they pull him off his horse, and tell him that, "Hey, you know what? We're going to sacrifice you to our God." And so the chief priest comes out there and looks at the king up and down and notices, hey, he's missing a toe. He's not a good sacrifice. They let him go, right? The king feels really great, comes back, and he goes, oh my goodness, my prime minister is in jail. And so he comes back and he gets the prime minister out of jail, and the prime minister hugs him, and the king tells him the story, and he says, well, you were right, all this worked for good. See, it's my toe. And says, well, it didn't work just good for you. It worked good for me too, because you know that I go with you wherever you go, and you know I would never let you get lost. And I have all my toes. So where would he be, right? Those are the kind of things that happen in my life today. I have these paradoxes real quick. I have a stepson, Garrett. Him and I butt heads a lot. And I've been with him 10 years. We don't have big interactions. And so I have this alternator that goes bad, right? Guys that know anything about alternators, right? 3 bolts, a clip, a nut, right? Should be easy. This is not. It's under the car and around, so I can't get to it. Garrett's kind of mechanical. So Garrett's having money trouble, right? I think, well, I'll get Garrett to do this. And so my stepdaughter's car's broken. Everything's bad. My wife's messed up. Garrett's messed up. Everything's going crazy. So I get Garrett to do it for money. Garrett gets extra money. The daughter gets her car fixed. My wife's happy, but something else happened there. I was talking to Garrett about doing it, and I say, hey, Garrett, hey, thanks for doing that. I go, yeah. And he goes, I love you, buddy. And he says, I love you too. And I went, 10 years, nothing like that. Those are the kind of things that happen in my life today. So I just want you guys to enjoy this next song, and we'll come up and we'll wrap this up. God's been good. In my story, I talked about my mom getting shot. What you don't know is it was my dad that shot her. And I was alone. He crawled into a bottle, and I never really saw him again. Not who he was. And I was fatherless, and I was motherless. But you know what? I've never been alone. I've never been alone, and none of you today have to be alone if you don't want to be alone. We don't have to go back to who we were. We don't. Just make it Jesus' hand. Jesus' hand, whatever you're doing, just take him with you wherever you go. He won't let you down. He didn't let me down, and I was in a dark place, and he never let me down. Bow your heads with me. Father in heaven, thank you so much for the people gathered here today. Thank you for the people that are watching. I ask now that you would fill this house and this home and this church and their homes and all those with the Holy Spirit. And that they would come to that place in their lives where they'd enter into that deeper surrender that will save them in the end. Jesus, we love you and we thank you. And bless us now as we go. In Jesus' name, amen. Have a good evening, guys.